And then I have to mute all. Okay, B, just remember to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me now?
No, you can't.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Member Connections. We don't have to go out in the rain today, so that's a big advantage of Zoom. And Sandra, thank you so much for doing this. I'm anxious to hear all about your adventures and so on. And there will be questions after Sandra's finished. So unmute yourself when you're ready to ask a question. Okay, thank you, everybody. Okay, Sandra, take it away.
Can you hear me? Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm doing this through the Inclusivity Committee. I was born in Galveston, Texas. And Galveston is a small island on the Gulf of Mexico to a young teenage mother. And in Galveston, segregation in the 40s was not necessarily racist. It was more economy. The wealthy lived at one end of town. Everybody else lived all over the little town of Galveston. So my mother and I lived with my grandparents, and we lived next door to a building, an apartment complex that housed Mexican Americans. And I played with those children every day until I started preschool. My grandmother's best friend had a preschool, and I went to school there, and I played with other children, the Black children. So when I started grammar school, I went to Catholic school, the only Black Catholic school and church in Galveston. The nuns were Black, the priests were white. And when I was 9 years old, my mother married my stepfather. He had family here in California, so he came out and found a house. My mother followed, and my grandmother brought me out that summer so I could start school at the beginning of the school year. My mother did day work. My stepfather was a mechanic. And we lived in a part of Los Angeles that was considered, it was just Los Angeles then. But after the Watts riot, that part of town is part of South Central. It wasn't then. And my stepfather took the test and went to work for the post office. He was a driver. He drove one of those big mail rigs that attaches to a cab. And then he bought a house in Pacoima in a brand new neighborhood. And they moved when I was going into the 9th grade, which is when Catholic school starts for high school. So, and my rules were in grammar school, grandmother would drop me off and I could walk home because it was 3 blocks from school. And my rules were, you come home, you do your homework, you get your chores done, and that's it. You cannot go outside and play. So weekends, occasionally, I got to play. But when we moved to the Valley and I started high school, the Catholic school was a new school. I was in the 2nd class that started the new school. There were 5 Black students out of a student body of about 700. And there was a mother who did not work, so she carpooled. And the 5 of us went to school and came home. We didn't live that close by, so we didn't really socialize except for at school. And I started the 9th grade. The school was it was considered co-ed, kinda. The boys were on one side, the girls were on the other side, no commingling at school. But most of these students had grown up together, they had gone to elementary school together and everything, and they socialized with one another. In the 9th grade, I met 2 other students, And one of those students is my friend to this day. She's my best friend. And we have a 65-year relationship. And the third girl died a few years ago, but Sheila and I talk on a daily basis. And when I was in the 10th and 11th grade, my sister and brother were born. So my father, by then, had become a supervisor over the driver's department at the post office at the terminal annex. And then my sister and brother, a little bit different. They could play in the neighborhood because my rules were still the same in high school. You don't go outside, got homework, you got chores, you don't go outside. My sister and brother, they went to Catholic school for about 2 years and they didn't want to anymore, and they didn't. They were able to play with the kids in the neighborhood. And as a matter of fact, there weren't any teenagers that I remember in my neighborhood when I was growing up. But there were young children their age, and they're friends with a lot of those kids to this day. So I graduated, and when I graduated, I started junior college, and I went to work for Litton Industries as a spot welder. And I welded small components onto motherboards that they used in small jets. And 2 years out of high school, I got married. And he was a carpenter. He worked for Travelese Trailer Company. And I continued to work and go to school. 4 years into my marriage, my son was born. He's an only child. And I always worked nights. My husband worked days, so we didn't have to babysit or anything. And he was a good father for a young Black child because he spent a lot of time with him, taught him a lot, and did a lot of things with him. So I then had started to do data processing, and I went to work for Bank of America. Later on, I started working for law firms. And I continued to work, I continued to go to school. And when at one point, I discovered data processing, which was word processing. I did data processing at Bank of America, but I discovered law firms and I started doing word processing. And my son, we lived in Sun Valley. My son went to Montessori preschool, and then they started busing when he was going into elementary school, and he would get taken, we'd take him to my mother's house where he'd get picked up by the bus, and then he would come home there. And he's still friends with a lot of the children he met at Encino Elementary School. And anything that David was involved in, we supported him and we involved ourselves. PTA, Boy Scouts, sports, anything that he was a part of, we were a part of too. And in his junior year, in his start of junior high school, one of his teachers started a prep school. So he went to Montclair Prep School for junior high and then graduated from Granada Hills High. And he has a BA in sociology from Santa Barbara, which he doesn't use. So anyway, I continued to work and take care of my family and go to school. Finally, after 20 years, I received my BA in speech communications. I wanted to be a teacher, always wanted to be a history teacher because I loved history. in Catholic elementary school or in Catholic school period, you have an hour of history class and you have an hour of religion, and it was all history, and I loved history. So I got my degree. I wanted to teach, but they were busing. And I lived in, we had moved then to Lakeview Terrace, which is East Valley, near my parents and his parents. So I decided I had to make a decision. I did not want to travel to West Valley because that's where they would have sent me. I had talked to several teachers, several Black teachers, and they said the kids are not nice to us and the parents don't want us there, and we really have a rough time. So I decided, it's easier to go downtown and work. I don't have to fight the traffic on the freeway and everything. And I made better money than teachers did. So then at some point, my marriage was starting to fall apart. And before it fell apart, we traveled a lot. When David was a preteen going into his teenage years, and my sister and brother were teenagers, my mother and I joined an organization called Jack and Jill of America. It is a Black mothers and children's organization. And they teach children basically how to run businesses, how to prepare for college. And there's a teen conference that they have every year in a different state in the United States. It's a national organization. So we travel throughout the United States for these teen conferences. And then once David was going to college, like I said, my marriage was starting to fall apart. So he and I traveled a lot. We went to Europe, and I got the chance to see a lot of the things that I had studied about and read about. And then we traveled to Canada. We traveled to Alaska, where I visited a Native American reservation. We cruised to the Caribbean. We went to Jamaica and Puerto Rico. We got close enough to see Cuba, but during the 90s, you couldn't go to Cuba. So, but then once we got back, things really disintegrated for us. So by then, I was working at 2 law firms, and a friend of mine had a resume service, and she was getting ready to leave town, so I bought it from her, and I did that for a while. That was one of my 3rd jobs. So I joined the Burbank Business and Professional Women's Organization, and in all of these organizations, I pretty much held a position, some position. And when when my husband, he worked 12 years at the trailer company. And after that, he started a janitorial supply company, and we joined the Rotary Club, the San Fernando Rotary Club, and for a couple of years. And then once we got a divorce, I started to do medical transcription. So I worked law firm at night, medical transcription in the morning. And I did 15 years at MD Anderson Cancer Center. Very interesting work. And let's see. After that, I retired from the law firm, from one of the law firms I was at after 28 years. And the marriage was a lot of mental and emotional abuse. It wasn't physical abuse, but it was pretty, it was uncomfortable, and we just drifted apart. So and I know we had talked in different groups about racism and everything like that. Never experienced really any overt racism. I'm not afraid of, I'm a joiner. I'm not afraid to put myself out there and be honest and open with people. I have met a lot of people, I've done a lot of things, and it hasn't been bad at all. So there were a couple of incidents though. Once I was going from Sun Valley to my mother's house, and I was pulled over. I learned to drive on an Austin Healey stick shift, and I love sports cars. So I had a Porsche by then. Anyway, I was going down Glen Oaks and got to San Fernando Road, and I got pulled over. Get out of the car, check the registration and everything. I hadn't done anything, but once they checked everything, they let me go. And there was another incident when I bought this condo in Glendale within the last 20 years. The couple that sold it to me, their daughter was in real estate, and she handled everything. About 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, I received a check in the mail, class action suit. I had been redlined. Well, as we know, Glendale was Klan territory. So that was interesting, but I have to say, my life hasn't been a bad life, and I did what I wanted to do, and I did it my way. And I would like to thank Karen for introducing me to the village. Next month, I will be starting my 3rd year with the village, and I just like to keep busy. So that's my story.
Anybody, any questions?
Are there any questions for Sandra?
Yeah,
Yes, I have a question. Sandra,
Yes.
thank you so much for sharing all of that. That was fascinating to me. And I came in a little bit late, but I did get got in time to hear you talk about your very structured school years when
yeah.
you came home and studied and did chores and were not allowed to go outside to play. And I have a couple questions about that.
Okay.
Was that for safety issues, or was it because your mom and dad were very task oriented and did not want you to spend time playing?
I think my mother pretty much ran the show, and she was a strict disciplinarian. My stepfather was a great guy, but he didn't discipline. He didn't even discipline my sister and brother. He was just a lovable guy. And I didn't think about the protection aspect of it until Bob Snodgrass mentioned that to me. And I thought possibly but I think on the other hand, it was because they didn't pay a babysitter. They didn't have a babysitter. So mother just told me what to do and I did it. My sister and brother, nope, they weren't like that. But they also had each other. I had nobody.
Well, the interesting thing to me about that story is that you as an adult person have been a very responsible, task-oriented person.
Yeah.
And I love it that you had all of that wonderful travel time. But I'm wondering whether that focus on not having playtime, what the impact was on you as a child and as an adult.
I don't know about I don't know what the impact was as a child, but I know that I'm used to being alone. I don't have a problem being alone. And like I said, my very best friend for all these years, she's a lot like me. She kind of grew up the same way. She had a brother, but her parents separated and they kind of grew up like that. And like I said, we talk every day. She was my matron of honor at my wedding. And I don't know that that particular thing didn't traumatize me as far as I know. And I was Catholic school was strict discipline, and then I went home to strict discipline. So I guess that's just what I got, who I am.
Well, my guess is from listening to you, and it's just so fascinating because my guess is that what you learned with your task orientation and practicing and being very task oriented all those young years, that has really become a source of pleasure and internal gratification for you. So in a way, it was, I'm not saying it offers the same thing that play does, creativity and play, but it seemed as though you are operating as an adult in a way that is very satisfying to you. And you've continued to be very busy and very task oriented and very focused.
Yeah, I believe that's so. It is just me. That's what I do.
Uh-huh.
And it doesn't bother me.
And it works.
Yeah, it does.
I wanted to ask Sandra, I'm Betty Ann Jansen. I don't know if I know you, but anyways,
Yes.
you seem to have an easy time finding jobs. Like, how did you find the medical transcribing job?
I don't remember exactly what I was doing, but I met someone and she worked for this registry. I don't know if what I was doing at the time, but she worked for a registry and their anchors were Johns Hopkins and MD Anderson on the other coast. And that was how I got into that. And after the 15 years at MD Anderson, I went on to work for a number of hospitals in Texas, because that being here, that was where they stationed you basically.
So did you ever
So-
go down there, or you did it remotely?
Oh no, I do it remotely. I did it remotely. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
I have a question too. Sandra, I
What
know
is
that,
it? What is it?
well, I know that you have shared with me some of your experiences with your mom growing up in LA, and some of the cultural experiences you had through her employers. And
yeah.
maybe you could share a little bit about that, because I thought that was really a very rich experience you had.
She was always a very curious person. She always wanted to be a nurse, and eventually in her 40s, late 40s, I think, she became an LVN. But when she did day work here, she worked for some very nice families. And one of the families, a couple of the families, they were very wealthy people, and they of course did a lot of things. And one of the things that I remember was when the what's it called, oh crap, I can't remember. The ballet, the Russian ballet. The first year it came to America, my mother took me to see it. They made sure if there was anything she wanted to see or that I wanted to do, that I got to do it. So I saw the Bolshoi Ballet the first time it came to America. And there were other concerts and things. They would always let her, use the boxes at the concerts and everything. So I did experience a lot of things. A lot of them are gone from this aged memory, but I experienced a lot of things. And nobody was ever, and nobody ever made a difference in me or made me feel unwanted or anything like that. So,
I have one other question. When you talked about going to high school where you were, there were like, I think you said 5 or 6 Black kids in a school of several hundred white kids, and you were in a carpool. I right away was curious, was the carpool just you Black kids, or was the carpool a mix of kids?
no, it was 5 Black children from Pacoima.
Oh,
And
and you
when
all just carpool together. Okay.
Yeah, and 3 of them were older than me. They were in the first graduating class. The boy that was my age, he left in the 10th grade. I was the only Black student graduating. By then, the student body was about 1,000 students.
Whoa.
So, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Sandra, I had a question. Since there's such a big gap between you and your siblings, do you maintain a close relationship with them, or are they kind of like a whole different generation?
I talked to my sister shortly before this. I told her I have to go, I have to do a presentation. But yep, we're close. And my brother lives in Georgia, but we are close because basically I kind of took over raising them when they were born. My mother was working, and my stepfather, just before he became supervisor, was stepping out of a truck one night, of that cab, and he fell and cracked his tailbone. So he was laid up for a couple of years. Then he went back to work for a while, and he couldn't really drive. And then that's when they made him a supervisor. But I had one more chore when I came home, so I had schoolwork, homework, and I had to take care of the 2 babies.
Wow.
But yeah, but my sister and I are very close. And she has 2 boys. So, yep.
Interesting.
I have a question, Sandra. I noticed you're involved in a lot of different committees and groups here at the village. What else are you involved in Pasadena, or are you staying involved in other things during COVID?
Right now, the only other thing that I'm involved in is with my HOA here at this condo. And I'm running for the board there. So as soon as we have our election, I'll find out whether I get, to hold a position or not. But otherwise, I'm kind of taking it easy. I guess the village keeps me busy.
Oh, you're muted, Betty Ann, you're muted.
Sorry, I think people are so dumb when they do that.
Aren't they?
Join the club.
When you said that you got a check because you were redlined, what do you mean by that? I mean, I know what redlining is, but why did you get a check?
It was a settlement from a class action suit that had been filed that I had no knowledge of, but I was included. So
Because you were
that
forced to buy
they paid
Go ahead.
out on the class action suit. It was quite unexpected.
Wow.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
I have a question about that redlining. You apparently didn't experience any difficulty in getting your financing for buying the condo. So that seems contrarian that you were able to get the mortgage to pay for the condo without a problem.
Well, like I said, the owner's daughters was in real estate. She handled everything, and I put 20% down. So I never knew if anything was wrong or not, until that check came.
I'm wondering if you hadn't looked at another property and that property was part of the suit.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Probably
I had rented here for about 9 years. And the way that I found this place was, my ex-husband and I had another condo in Glendale, And when we separated, I moved here, and I had a friend, one of the secretaries I worked with had friends, and they found a condo, and I had no trouble getting in or anything. They were willing to rent to me. So they were really nice people, and we keep in touch even to this day and during holidays. So I've been very lucky with a lot of things, and I have no complaints, no regrets.
I have another question. Sandra, you mentioned a Black Mothers organization that you participated in while David was growing up. I'd be interested in hearing more about that.
Jack and Jill.
Yeah. Well, it's what they do is they train children for leadership positions, and I had to write a lot of this down on this because I had forgotten about it. And they have cultural activities and social activities, and the mothers meet and have let's see what the mothers attend regular meetings so that they can help their children and other children. So I don't know, it's not a real publicized organization. I found out, my mother found out through somebody she knew, but they are a national organization.
They're actually
One
pretty,
in Pasadena. Yeah, we have one in Pasadena.
they're very active in Pasadena.
Yeah.
Oh,
I've heard of them. I just didn't know that much about them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sandra,
As active as like the Black sororities.
Sandra, I have a question. Because, is it my turn?
Go ahead, Sue. It's your turn.
Okay. So when we were still going out and about, I gave you a couple of rides and drive. And so I'm curious how that impacts you, how you've adapted so well, and how long that's
not driving.
Yeah.
Well, one of the good things about this location is I can walk to all my markets. I mean, Whole Foods, Vaughn's, Ralph's, the drugstores, Trader Joe's, everything is pretty much centrally located. And I'm 15 minutes away from anything walking. And so I haven't really, it hasn't really bothered me. Now my son lives with me, and he drives me a lot of places. I have to work around his schedule, but that's, and thank goodness for the village drivers and everything. So that was really nice. But like I said, I just something I have to get used to, because I was really a real out and about person. But I've done so much, and I have so much to be thankful for. I don't have any regrets about it.
Yeah. I was surprised when you said Galveston is where the other half lived. My one visit there was to go on a cruise, and it seemed pretty gentrified. I don't know if it's changed a lot since you lived there.
I don't know, because I haven't been back since my grandmother died, and that's about 20 years now. I'd say close to 20 years, but
yeah, we took a horse-drawn carriage.
When I was a little girl, it was it was different, you know. So I think now it's just like everywhere else. It's better.
It's gotten gentrified, I think.
Yeah.
Those cute little Victorian houses.
Yeah.
That's about it anyway. We should tie it up.
Okay, what's next? B?
I'll let
He's calling you. He said your name.
Oh. Are we finished? No more questions?
No, I just want to add one more thing. I met Sandra, when I was working a part-time job at the Curves Gym for Women in Montrose. And as you can imagine, it was mostly, La Cañada ladies that came in there, Montrose, and it's pretty lily white. And then one day Sandra came in, and she came in with this lovely little British woman that would work out there. And I just noticed her because she didn't look like everybody else that was in there. And my job was to welcome everybody. So, I welcomed her, and it was just really easy to get to know her. And I always admired her commitment to her coming in and doing the workout, her sweet friend Hazel that I've also become friends with. And she just, that's the beginning of our friendship. And when she retired, I thought she really needs to be part of the village. And I was right about that.
Well, that's good.
Sandra, do you remember the name of the order that the Black nuns belonged to?
I think that they were, I'm not exactly sure, but I know all the nuns that I dealt with here in California were the Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet. Now, I don't know if those were the same nuns there. The habits look the same, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was kind of raised Catholic. I went to parochial school for a few years. I well remember the nuns, but and it was probably just as strict as your schools were, which is why I didn't stick with it through high school.
See, I didn't have a choice. And I remember once when I was in elementary school in Galveston, I came home and in Catholic school, you get corporal punishment when you don't pass a test and when you don't behave. So I came home after getting a spanking, and I had told the nun, my mother doesn't want me to get spankings. So when I got home, by the time I got home, the nun had called. So I got another spanking. So anyway.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I didn't play that. So,
Dear.
Times were different then. My father used to say, if they hit you at school, it must be because you deserved it.
Yeah.
No sympathy there.
Well, in your case, Wayne, that's probably true.
Sandra, I wanted
Yes.
to say one other thing, and that is that I think it's the loss for the public schools that you didn't become a history teacher. You were
Yeah.
an incredible teacher. It's
Yes.
sad, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, but like I said, driving to West Valley, fighting the traffic, and getting paid much less money.
Yeah.
You made the right move.
Economic decision. Yeah.
It's probably the right economic decision. This is true.
But on that score, Sandra, it took 20 years
Yeah.
to get your.
No student loans.
So you were raising your son and you were working the whole time, but you didn't ever say, oh, why am I doing this? What the heck? Who cares? You just,
No.
no.
And I have to tell you, that strict mother of mine wanted me to have a college degree. And I mainly did it for that reason. And that's why when I got it, I felt like, okay, I've done my part now. So I was done with that. But I got it. So
It sounds like your mother wanted you to accomplish something that she wasn't able to.
yeah, I guess so.
Ask something.
Yes.
I've got one more comment to make.
Go ahead.
Mike, is it my turn, Wayne?
Yes, it's your turn.
Sandra,
Whoever starts speaking, it's their turn.
I want to know, since you had a Porsche, I mean, that is so different from the whole track of your story that you ended up buying yourself a Porsche. That's
Well,
beautiful. And I wonder what happened after that. I mean, you had to give up driving eventually, but did you have another unusual car between the Porsche and the end of your driving?
I had two Porsches.
Oh,
I had a 924 and a 944, and I drove those for years. And finally, when I moved over here, I downsized to a Toyota, and but I enjoyed them while I had them because, like I said, I love sports car, love the speed and everything like that. But
okay. So all those years of that strictness, you took care of it by getting yourself a Porsche and loving
I guess so.
Good point.
That's the
Porsche therapy.
Funny.
Gotta get crazy somewhere.
I have to remember that. I never thought of it that way.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, shows right up. Good for you. Thank you so much for telling us your wonderful story, Sandra. It's been
Well,
so
thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you, Sandra. I really appreciate your doing this, and thank everyone else for coming. And it's really good to see you all. And thank you, Wayne. Whatever you want to say. Okay, bye-bye now. Thank
Okay,
you.
great.
Bye.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Sandra.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.